Wearing a tracksuit to a mixer is just lame, man. That's a no-go. Why don't you just head home? I was invited to drinks by a former middle school classmate, having been told it was just a casual get-together with old classmates, so I showed up in my casual tracksuit. However, upon arrival, I realized it wasn't just a casual drinking session, but a mixer. The women were already there, and there was no turning back. Ah, did I make you mad? Are you upset? It was just a joke. Don't take it seriously. Haha. When I tried to respond angrily, the organizer, my former classmate, would just brush it off as a joke. The vibe was kind of awkward, but I figured it couldn't be helped and was heading to the bar. That's when one of the women who came whispered something in my ear. My name is Jason. I'm just an average guy, but there's one thing about me that might be a bit unusual. I have an undying love for tracksuits. Lately, I've seen a lot of functional clothing, but I always end up thinking, isn't a tracksuit good enough? It's comfortable without any unnecessary tightness, has the right amount of stretch, it's easy to clean and dries fast, and the designs are cool. I could go on and on about the benefits. I just love tracksuits that much. I have them divided into ones for sports and ones for lounging around at home, and my closet is practically filled with them. My preference for wearing tracksuits probably stems from my love of sports. In the elementary school, I was juggling multiple sports clubs like basketball, soccer, and tennis. Once I got to the middle school, I had to focus on my studies and choose just one sport. After much deliberation, I joined the basketball team, my favorite, and dedicated myself to it for 3 years. Even now, as an adult, I continue to be active, sometimes playing basketball with friends on weekend. On days when I can't play basketball, I never skip my jogging routine. Even when I'm tired or busy with work, as long as it's feasible, I go for a run. It's become a daily habit, and I feel restless when I can't do it. It's probably a testament to how much fulfillment I find in physical activity. Or maybe it's because I can't wear my sports tracksuits. No, probably not. One day while jogging, I suddenly remembered something from my middle school days. It was an unforgettable memory from the last regional tournament in middle school. Please, let this work. The heat of summer and the fervor of the audience. Surrounded by two kinds of heat at the venue, I prayed out loud. We were losing by a narrow margin in the final minute of the game. As I took the shot, I remember the moment until the ball went in or missed felt like it was in slow motion. Yes, it went in. After what felt like an eternity, the ball finally passed through the hoop. We not only caught up but took the lead. Jason, I was celebrating with my teammates, fully convinced we had secured a comeback victory. But then, as if struck by divine punishment for our complacency, the unthinkable happened. No way, you've got to be kidding. In the final moments, our opponents landed a three-pointer. Despite our desperate attempts to take the lead back, we were defeated, our resistance in vain. In the end, our complacency led to a bitter loss and a turnaround. Since then, I've lived by the motto, never let your guard down. In basketball, as in everything, you never know what might happen until the very end. Memories of the game brought back images of my teammates sobbing uncontrollably. Now, it's just a nostalgic memory, but back then, it felt like the world had ended. Thinking back, I heard the guy who cried the most is now running a company. I'll be darned, that guy, I think to myself, but I guess we're all in the same boat. Today was a day off. I planned to go jogging, but what else should I do? Basketball was out since the regular crew couldn't make it. Besides, the weather was unfortunately not suitable for outdoor sports. A bummer for a day off, but maybe it's a chance to do something different. With that in mind, after jogging, I changed into my loungewear tracksuit and stayed indoors. I even cleaned parts of the house I usually don't bother with. For lunch, I whipped up something from leftovers in the fridge. As the evening rolled around and I got bored, I watched a movie I'd been meaning to see on a streaming service. I had some unopened snacks, so I enjoyed them as I watched. That was a thought-provoking story. I mused to myself as the credits rolled, when suddenly my phone on the desk started buzzing. It was a call. Who could it be? Hopefully not work-related. I fought with a sense of dread. Picking up the phone, the screen showed the name Tyler. Tyler was a middle school classmate, someone I rarely kept in touch with. Wondering what it could be about, I muted the TV and answered the call. "Hello. Hey, long time no see, Jason," came Tyler's voice from the other end of the phone, unchanged since those days. His tone was the same as back then, bringing back vivid memories of the old days. "Long time indeed. What's up? Out of the blue. You know, you missed the reunion a while back, right? Everyone was bummed they didn't get to see you," he said. "About half a year ago, I got word of the reunion from another former classmate. I had wanted to go, but unfortunately, work got in the way. As a sort of make-up for that, a few of us from middle school are getting together for drinks tonight. You want to come?" Saying that, Tyler told me about the other members who would be joining. Hearing some familiar names, it definitely seemed like a reunion rematch was in the cards. "Got it, I'll be there." "Great, I'll send you the location link in a message. We'll meet there." "Sure thing. See you later." I hung up and started getting ready to go out. I heard it was just a casual get-together with classmates, so I didn't bother dressing up and left in my casual tracksuit. The weather was still on and off rain, with even darker clouds visible in the distance. "Looks like we're in for a heavy downpour," I muttered, slipping a foldable umbrella into my bag and heading out. Walking from a certain station to the designated bar, I spotted a group dressed to the nines. Among them was Tyler, the classmate who had contacted me. He was with a group of women. As I approached, still puzzled, Tyler burst into laughter upon seeing me. "Why are you wearing a tracksuit, man?" he chuckled. That's when I finally realized this gathering was a mixer. To get me to come, knowing I'd refuse if it was a mixer, he lied and said it was just a casual drinking party with classmates. "That's probably it. You still all brawn and no brain," Tyler said, laughing and mocking me. The other classmates laughed along with him, which felt pretty bad. "Whatever, let's go, big guy," Tyler, acting as the organizer and group leader, said and led the way to the bar. Following him in order were the classmates, the women, and then me. "Big guy, huh? That's a nostalgic nickname," I murmured to myself so no one could hear. Big guy was my nickname in middle school. I was big and muscular, and also in the basketball team. I got the nickname because my situation resembled a character in a certain basketball cartoon. Back then, it felt like most people called me that out of respect, but now Tyler seemed to use it mockingly. I'm not the same as I used to be. I don't just do sports all the time. I don't think I'm just a musclehead. But Tyler and the others don't seem to see it that way. Should I snap back, or just laugh it off? While I was thinking, Tyler, walking in front, said loudly, "Wearing a tracksuit to a mixer is just lame, man. That's a no-go. Why don't you just head home?" He had this annoying smirk on his face. That reminded me. He has always been the type to mock and laugh at others when he got carried away. I'm not good at showing emotions and don't get angry much, but I'm especially bad with such people. They mistake my silence for acceptance. Sigh. Faced with Tyler's behavior, I let out a sigh. Does he think I won't get angry no matter what he says? Look, man. Unable to stay silent any longer, I opened my mouth to say something. But Tyler quickly interrupted me with his usual assertiveness. Ah, did I make you mad? Are you upset? It was just a joke. Don't take it seriously. Haha. That's his usual tactic. Say something to provoke anger, then, when someone is about to get mad, escape by claiming it was just a joke. This unbeatable phrase is tricky because if you get angry at Tyler's laughing, you're seen as the guy who can take a joke to everyone else. So, I had to stay calm. I didn't know it was a mixer. Oh, really? Tyler just feigned ignorance when confronted. It was frustrating, but to avoid making more of a scene, I had no choice but to go along with his pace. After all, there were women around. The mixer partners were all beauties. They were all flight attendants from the same airline. On the way to our seats in the bar, one of them whispered to me, "Captain, why are you hiding it?" Her name was Grace, a female colleague from the same company. The other women, whom I also knew, kept glancing over. "I'm sorry for making things awkward. I'll explain when I get a chance." Okay. Grace seemed unconvinced but didn't press any further. Shortly after the mixer started, a man arrived late. I had wondered why there was one man short, but now it made sense. Tyler hadn't explained this either. "Good evening. Sorry I'm late," he said in a stylish outfit, making him seem like a completely different entity compared to me in my tracksuit. I recognized him. No, it was more than that. "Isn't that David?" "Hey, long time no see, Jason." He was David, a classmate and teammate from the basketball club. He was the one who cried the most after we lost our last tournament. His impressive attire made sense since he runs an apparel company. "Sorry, can I get a beer?" David sat next to me, smiling as he ordered a beer from the waiter. He introduced himself to the women and smoothly started to blend into the conversation. Unlike Tyler, he didn't mock my tracksuit and seemed to enjoy the conversation. A little while after he joined, he was chatting happily when Tyler abruptly interrupted him. I remembered, this guy used to cry a lot in middle school. Tyler's words were meant as a taunt. David responded with a furrowed brow, and it was clear he was remembering, just like I had earlier, that Tyler was always this kind of guy. He used to bawl his eyes out over losing a club match, and remember when he cried because a cicada landed on his shoulder. Haha, Tyler pointed at David, trying to turn him into the butt of the joke. But Tyler was the only one laughing. "Cut it out, Tyler. It's not funny at all." "Haha, just kidding, man. You're still so serious." Now I became the target for defending David. "Right, you've always been like that, no sense of humor. Can't even crack a joke, always just a jock, and you even failed your first choice high school entrance exam." Tyler went on with his insults about me. Right, guys. He sought agreement from the other classmates, but they seemed aware of the situation. "Seriously, it's funny that you came to a mixer in a tracksuit." "Hey, Tyler, just stop, will you? Yeah, look around, man." Perhaps realizing it only after being told off by those he thought were his lackeys, Tyler stopped my story midway. Indeed, all the women were looking at him with cold, unamused expressions. In that awkward atmosphere, Grace spoke up. "So, Tyler, you can only speak ill of others, huh? Is that all you have to talk about?" She said it with a gentle smile, but her choice of words seemed tinged with subtle anger. Upon hearing this, Tyler's face stiffened. "You're not funny, and you're the worst as a person. You're ruining the mood of the party, making it no fun at all. You told Jason to go home earlier, but you should be the one to leave." The other women agreed with Grace. Tyler, seemingly not expecting this, turned red and shook with contained anger. "A joke is supposed to be fun, but yours are just malicious and uncomfortable. It shows your true character." Grace didn't hold back, and the other women nodded in support. None of the men tried to stop her. They must have been feeling the same dissatisfaction towards Tyler. "You bastard." Finally speaking up, Tyler showed no signs of apology or remorse. Instead, he exploded in anger. "Don't get cocky just because you're pretty," he yelled as he walked towards the women, trying to grab Grace. "Whoa, that's enough." Unable to just stand by, I stepped between Tyler and Grace. I grabbed Tyler's arm, glaring at him to silently convey stop it. I'm still somewhat fit, and I've always been bigger than him. Stopping him was no trouble at all. "Captain, thank you," Grace said loudly, making sure others could hear. The word captain caused a stir among the classmates. "Captain? Yeah, she did call Jason captain, didn't she?" I had thought I would mention my job when the time was right, but I never expected it to come out like this. Releasing Tyler, who looked dazed, I turned to everyone. "Actually, I'm a pilot." At my revelation, my classmates expressed their surprise. Grace then added, "We actually work for the same company. I never thought we'd be invited to the same drinking party." While we laughed at the strange coincidence, Tyler slumped to the ground. In middle school, I was too focused on club activities and my grades weren't great. In high school, I worked hard to balance basketball and studies. All that effort paid off when I got into an aviation college. I only mentioned my dream once in middle school. I think it was during a break when I was talking about the future with friends. I want to be a pilot someday, to fly freely in the sky. While we were having a good time, Tyler barged in and threw a wet blanket on it. "Come on, a pilot, like you could ever become one, haha." The dream of being a pilot was even older than my basketball days. I kept it alive despite Tyler and his gang mocking it. After that, I never spoke of this dream again. But I never gave up. I secretly continued to work hard, and here I am, a pilot. Tyler, slumped on the ground, glared at me bitterly. To him, I expressed my dissatisfaction. "You haven't changed since middle school, Tyler. You only bring others down to show yourself, but that doesn't mean you're getting any higher. How about realizing that? You're an adult now, aren't you?" He continued to glare. "Why can't you understand that such tactics don't work anymore?" He bit his lip in frustration. Then David added, "Sure, I was a crybaby, but that was a long time ago." Tyler had never asked about the current Jason or current David. Even after more than 10 years since middle school, he clung to the past. "Now, I run my own company. Sorry to say, but I think I'm living a much better life than you." David stood up, turning towards Tyler as if showing off his appearance. "Your watch and shoes are mass-produced, and the sewing on your clothes is sloppy, cheap stuff. Obviously, I'm not saying wearing cheap things is bad, but at least you're not in a position to mock Jason's tracksuit, right?" Embarrassed by the pointing out, Tyler covered his watch with his hand and stood up. His face was again red, a mix of shame and anger. "Shut up. I won't invite any of you ever again." With that, Tyler suddenly ran out of the bar. After he left, the atmosphere of the drinking party became much more pleasant. The classmates who had been close to Tyler seemed to be reflecting, heads down. "Sorry for going along and laughing with him. Should have stopped him." Excuse sounds weak, but being around old friends, I guess I got carried away, like reverting to childhood. Those classmates, as an apology, even offered to pay the whole bill. The gathering no longer felt like a mixer, just a casual drinking party. Especially for me, since everyone else was a colleague. The idea of a mixer now seemed embarrassingly out of place. Anything more might make things awkward at work. Suddenly, Grace looked at David as if remembering something and spoke. "By the way, David, you often fly on our company's planes, don't you?" "Yeah, I travel overseas a lot for work, so I use them frequently." David replied with a smile. "Wait a minute, I haven't heard about this. David and I had kept in touch occasionally, and he knew which airline I worked for as a pilot. Hey David, is that true? Yeah, it's true. I didn't say it, but I've been on flights you piloted. Seriously? Wow, I was shocked, not knowing David had been on my flights. Every time the captain greeted, I looked forward to seeing if it was you. He said, laughing. Meanwhile, I couldn't laugh, embarrassed at being observed at work without knowing. Then, David started talking about his apparel brand. The women were very interested in his story. David of today bore no resemblance to the boy who cried after losing a game. He had grown into a confident and respectable man. As the party wrapped up, David and I chatted for a bit. Great seeing you again, Jason. Definitely, it's best to talk face to face. Though we messaged each other, meeting in person was different. I had fun today, let's drink again sometime, David. I invited him, but he looked downcast. David, curious, I leaned in as he quietly began to speak. I've been meaning to tell you, I'm moving to Paris for work. Is that so? He was leaving the US in just a week. I'm glad I could see you one last time, he said, extending his hand. Accepting the handshake felt like saying goodbye. For a moment, I thought that. But either way, the reality of parting was inevitable, so I extended my hand too. Well, it's not like we'll never meet again. Right, David, we have messages, and we can call if we want. We shook hands firmly, smiling as we parted ways. A week later, as a captain, I was on a flight to Paris. The weather was clear, and the flight was smooth. Just before landing, I started the in-flight announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, our aircraft will soon be entering its descent. Please prepare for landing by returning your seat backs to their original position, stowing your tray tables, and securing your footrests. I then added instructions about stowing luggage and announced that the cabin crew would be making a final check. After the usual greetings, I continued. This is a personal message. I had rehearsed it many times in my mind, but the actual moment still made me nervous. A dear friend of mine is on this flight, embarking on a new journey to a new land, ready to spread his wings on the global stage. It is an honor to be part of this significant step in his life. He is a kind person, one who gets angry, cries, and laughs for others. As a friend, it's saddening to part ways with him. However, our airline connects the world, and together with other airlines, it brings the world closer. To all our passengers, we look forward to welcoming you aboard again. After saying everything I wanted, I turned off the microphone. Taking a deep breath, my co-pilot Kevin gave me a small round of applause. Great speech, Jason. Thanks. I might get in trouble for doing something like this, but it felt right. We shared a laugh. Right about now, Grace must be giving David a certain package. I had asked her in advance to deliver it, a modest gift for him as he embarks on his journey to new horizons. The package contained 3 things. A group photo taken after our last basketball game in middle school, a letter, and a handkerchief for any tears. I had told her to ask him to open it after reaching his destination, but I wondered if he would wait. Ah, those were the days. I thought, holding the same photo in my hand. I remember David as the one who cried a lot, but looking at the photo again, I realized we all had red eyes. I was no exception. That's how it was. Kevin watched silently as I indulged in memories. It was all because of you, wasn't it? After narrowly losing the game, we returned to the locker room, feeling frustrated and stunned. Even after hearing the coach's words, it still didn't feel like reality. But just before taking the photo, things changed. One of us started crying loudly. David back then. We were all holding back tears, but his crying broke the dam. He had voiced our collective emotions. It was a relief for someone like me, who's not good at expressing feelings. I think it was because we could cry openly there that we were able to move forward. Although I didn't pass the first-choice public high school that Tyler mentioned, now that my dream has come true, the distinction between public and private schools seems trivial. Later, after landing, I bumped into David at the airport. It was a bit awkward since the announcement was meant as a farewell. "Jason, you really surprised me with that announcement." His expression was a mix of a laugh and a cry. "Good, you heard it. I'm glad." "Thanks, Jason. Like you said, the world is close when you're on a plane, and the sky connects us, so I'm not alone." He smiled broadly. Suddenly, he began rummaging in his bag. "By the way, Grace gave me a package from you earlier. Can I open it?" No, don't open it here. Wait until you're at your hotel or new place." Startled by my insistence, he stopped and said, Okay. Reading a letter in front of me would be too embarrassing. Next time I come back, I'll fly with you again. Take care of me then." "Sure thing." We waved our hands overly large and finally parted ways for Ray-all. David's face showed no signs of doubt or anxiety as he walked away. Soon after, his brand began gaining more recognition. According to the message I received, he will soon participate in the Paris Fashion Week. Hearing about the remarkable progress of my close friend made me as happy as if it were my own achievement. As a result, his brand is expanding its stores in the US, especially popular among young women. In our company, his brand is a constant topic of conversation. Not just among Grace and the members who attended that drinking party, but also among senior and new flight attendants. One day after work, I received a message from David. "It's your birthday, right? Here's a return gift for you. Take it," it said. When I opened the delivered cardboard box, inside were a tracksuit top and bottom. And they even had his brand logo. Really, 2 sets, one for lounging and one for exercise. I gratefully accepted them and hung them on a hanger, displayed on my wall. When I mentioned it to Grace and the others, they were envious and amazed. As far as I know, his brand hasn't released tracksuits yet. So, the birthday present I received was specially made just for me. This fact was a major reason for the envy among the ladies. By the way, I haven't worn the tracksuits even once, despite receiving them months ago. I'd hate to get them dirty as loungewear or tear them during exercise. It's too precious to wear. When I told this to David, he scolded me, saying, "Clothes are meant to be worn." I apologized but still haven't worn them yet. I wonder when and on what occasion I should wear these special tracksuits. This has become my biggest dilemma lately. Passengers on airplanes come with various emotions. Some bored with joy, others with sadness. Some with excitement, others with reluctance. For work, tourism, relocation. Not just for our airline, passengers have diverse feelings and purposes. My job is to safely deliver all these different passengers to their destinations. With the tension of carrying my own dreams and the lives of the passengers, I fly through the skies today. Without belittling anyone, I'll continue to strive, holding pride in myself not just relatively, but absolutely. Gazing up at the vast sky, that's the promise I make to myself. Absolutely not. Why would a low-level employee like you use paid leave to come to a luxury hotel like this? Don't mess with me. Approval for paid leave. That was just to keep you guessing, obviously. I never imagined you'd actually take time off to come here. This was the day I took my mother to a luxury hotel as a Mother's Day present. My arrogant boss was waiting for me at the hotel, gelling and looking down on me with disdain. But he doesn't know. My mother is not just any ordinary woman, and that his life was about to take a turn for the worse. My name is Kevin. I grew up in a single-parent household after my parents divorced when I was young. From a young age, I noticed how busy my mother was, working hard to provide for us. As a kid left in daycare, I was always the last one to be picked up. "Hey, Mr. Johnson, where's my mom?" "Not here yet." "Yeah, she'll be a bit later." "Want to play with blocks?" "I guess. But all my friends have gone home already." "Then let's build a big truck with the blocks together." Mr. Johnson at the daycare probably felt sorry for me, waiting for my mom every evening. He always suggested fun activities to keep me entertained. Even in elementary school, life wasn't much different. Unlike daycare, which cared for me until 7 p.m., after-school programs only went until 6 p.m. and cost extra for extended hours. After 6 p.m., I would walk home alone on dark streets, watching other kids leave with their parents. Sometimes, friends' parents worried about me and offered me a ride home. But it felt more miserable, and I hated them seeing my dark, empty house, so I would rush home alone. I never expressed my loneliness or frustration to my mother. Even as a child, I understood she was working hard. I had a vague sense of our financial struggles and debt. So, I kept my feelings to myself, enduring the loneliness silently. As I got older, I turned to sports to distract myself from the loneliness. Sweating and focusing on sports helped me forget the unpleasantness. My childhood was a battle against this loneliness. Thanks to my mother's hard work, our living situation gradually improved. In high school, I was active in sports clubs and worked part-time on my days off. But it wasn't to earn living expenses. My mother's efforts meant it was just for pocket money, like my friends. Like my friends, I was earning money just for fun. Around that time, I started thinking about my future education. About my future path. One day, with parent-teacher meetings approaching, I brought it up to my mother. Private universities are a bit too much, but you can go to any public university department you like if you want to pursue higher education. Her response surprised me. "Really? Of course, you've been through a lot. I want to let you study as much as you want." "Thanks, Mom. I'll go to college. I'll study hard and get into a public university, so don't worry." "Sorry, Kevin." "Thank you. Thank you." I researched universities that were affordable and within commuting distance from home, and studied relentlessly. Juggling work and study was tough, but my mock exam results were promising. "If you keep up these grades, you're likely to get in." My teacher assured me at the parent-teacher-student conference. Encouraged by this, I confidently took my university entrance exams. And I succeeded, getting into a public university. As a college student, I increased my working hours but never slacked off in my studies. It was a university I had worked hard to get into. I didn't want to waste that opportunity. I packed my 4 years with lectures, earning more credits than necessary. I also actively participated in club activities, making for a fulfilling 4 years. After graduation, I got a job in the textile industry. Textile work requires a delicate sensibility, but also the physical strength to handle heavy fabric rolls. Thanks to my sports background, I was pretty confident about my physical abilities. As for the delicate sensibility, that's something I'm still looking to polish. Sensibility is honed on the job, don't worry. Michael from the sales department told me. His words made me realize that, although promotion is great, I wanted to work in the field as long as possible. Once you climb the corporate ladder, you end up doing more paperwork and attending more meetings than actual field work. I shared this view with my peers. "You're quite the unique one," they said. I wondered if most people prefer to climb the career ladder quickly and work comfortably in an office. It seemed I was the rare type. Under Michael's guidance, I worked hard, often meeting demanding requests from clients. Saying I dedicated most of my 20s to work wouldn't be an exaggeration. My life revolved around the company, awake or asleep. Then one day, everything changed. Cancer. Jer, I hesitated to tell you, but being honest is better than causing unnecessary speculation. This is terrible. But it's early stage, so it's not an immediate threat. Michael had gathered us before work to disclose his cancer diagnosis. Discovered early, there was a chance of recovery and return, but at 55, he decided to take early retirement. I'm sorry to spring this on you so suddenly. I'll ensure a smooth transition and won't burden you further, he said. But are you really okay? Will you recover? There's no guarantee in medicine, but the chances are good with early detection. I won't be gone just yet. Make sure to visit me sometimes. Michael. Overwhelmed, I couldn't help but cry, and Michael gently patted my back. Due to his illness, he quickly transitioned his responsibilities and left the workplace a few days later. His successor as department head was David. Hey, starting today, I'm the head of this department. I expect everyone's cooperation. With me in charge, lax work won't be tolerated. Be prepared to work hard. His greeting conveyed a sense of unease, causing frowns among us, but David seemed oblivious. He was someone none of us expected to get promoted to a management position. To put it bluntly, he wasn't exactly known for his competence. But with Michael's sudden retirement, David, by virtue of seniority, unexpectedly landed the role. He disliked being told what to do, often begrudgingly agreeing to Michael's instructions. He was also known for lashing out at objects and yelling at juniors, not the kind of person you hear good things about. Until now, Michael had kept him in check, preventing any major issues. But now, with Michael gone and David got promoted, there was virtually no one to stop him. Moreover, it seemed David didn't quite grasp that it's already the modern era. I'm heading out now. I was finishing up my day's work, ready to leave at the regular time. Hey, Kevin, it's still regular hours. Why are you leaving? David asked, genuinely puzzled. Well, it is the end of my shift, and I've finished today's work, so I'm heading home. What are you talking about? Just because you finished today's work doesn't mean you can just leave. There's always more to do. And you guys too. Don't just talk about today's work. Keep looking ahead and keep working. That way, we can secure more contracts, which is only good for the company. Stay late as much as possible. Those who leave on time are incompetent. Work harder. David announced this proudly in front of everyone, leaving us all dumbstruck. Then, when a junior employee tried to take an annual leave. Hey, I heard you applied for an annual leave. Yes. What are you thinking? He confronted him sharply. While everyone else is working hard, you think you can just take an annual leave. Don't mess around. If you have time to spare, work. No, that day is for a family memorial service. I've taken annual leaves before and it was never an issue. So what? I'm the boss now. Forget everything that happened before. From now on, taking annual leave is not allowed. His excessively tyrannical behavior left everyone in the department bewildered. There was even this incident. Who arrives at the last minute like that? As a punishment, come an hour early tomorrow and clean the office. He dished out such senseless penalties. In another time. We've met this month's target, but it's still not enough. Tomorrow is Saturday, but I'm calling a meeting, so everyone show up at the usual time. He also ordered us to come in on a day off for a mysterious meeting. Each time, we all voiced our concerns, but David didn't care. It seemed he had been frustrated for a long time, unable to secure a higher position. And now, as a manager, he was taking out his frustrations on us. Hey Kevin, how's it going? Good evening. Well, as usual. That's good, but you know, at your age, still being just a regular employee, isn't that a bit incompetent? Bottom of the barrel, at your age, it's pretty clear what your future holds, right? It's only a matter of time before the newbies surpass you. Well, anyway, try not to let the newbies overtake you. And of course, I'm counting on you for overtime tonight. David patted my shoulder and walked away, leaving me with nothing but a sigh. A few months passed since David took over. So, Mother's Day is coming up soon, and I thought I'd splurge on a gift. That's right, it'll be your first Mother's Day since you started working. Yes, so I was thinking, maybe a short trip nearby, perhaps an overnight stay. That sounds wonderful. Your mom will be thrilled. But then, I have to do the same for Father's Day, right? I'm thinking about where to go. They both love hot springs, so maybe somewhere with hot springs. Hearing two female colleagues, one a new graduate and the other in her third year, discuss this, I glanced at the calendar. Right, Mother's Day is coming up. Every year, I take my mom out for doTERRA, but maybe this year, I'll splurge on a luxury hotel for an overnight trip. That's what I was thinking. And as they say, strike while the iron is hot. Figuring that reservations for Mother's Day would fill up quickly, I quickly searched on my cell phone while having lunch. I made the reservation early. Then, I returned to the office and immediately applied for an annual leave using the internal form. I wanted my mom to relax, but I knew she'd hesitate to go alone if I just told her to enjoy herself. Well, it's a bit embarrassing to be staying at a hotel with my mom at this age, but it's good to show filial piety every once in a while. However, getting annual leaves, which was normal during Michael's time, has become impossible since David took over. I wondered what he would say this time. But if things stayed the same, the frustration among my colleagues would only keep growing. So, I decided to boldly apply for a weekday off. Until the day of the trip, things were relatively calm. I was sure I'd be reprimanded for taking an annual leave. I was even prepared to be scolded in front of everyone. But surprisingly, nothing was said. In fact, my application was approved the next day, which left me astonished. Kevin, you seem to be in good spirits lately. Something good happened? I don't think so, just the usual. Well, that's good. Keep up the good work as always. David was in too good of a mood, almost frighteningly so. Well, as long as things continue peacefully, that's all that matters. But I couldn't shake the feeling of calm before a storm. Then came the day of the trip. In the morning, my mom and I enjoyed sightseeing around the hotel, and we headed there in time for check-in. Wow, can we really stay in a place like this? Yeah, I'll go check in now. Just wait here. Thank you. While my mom excitedly explored the luxurious hotel, I went to the front desk to check in. But I stopped in my tracks when I saw someone who shouldn't be there. David. David ran over to me, surprised. Hey, Kevin. Why are you here, David? What do you mean, why am I here? Why is a low-level employee like you using annual leave to come to a luxury hotel like this? Don't mess around. David, grabbing me by the collar, began yelling. I was shocked and confused. But, you approved my annual leave request, didn't you? I complained about that. Indeed, David had approved my annual leave for today. Why am I being yelled at now, and in a place like this? That was just to lead you on. I never thought you'd actually take the day off and come here. Lead me on. I don't understand what you mean. Are you kidding me? I'd like to see the face of a parent who raised such an incompetent person who can't even understand their own position. What? The face of your parent? I want to see the face of the parent who raised such an incompetent person. David seemed to relish in saying such things. First of all, you don't even do unpaid overtime, and you seem to have no ambition for promotion, staying a regular employee forever. What's wrong with you? Don't you want to get promoted? If you do, work overtime every day. Show some determination and grit. Otherwise, the higher-ups won't value you. Well, you might not understand what I'm saying. being incompetent and all. Sorry for speaking about complex things. He kept ranting whatever he wanted. Feeling the painful stares of those around me, I knew I had to do something about this situation. Kevin. Hearing the commotion, my mother walked over. Realizing something, I turned back to face David. David. What? Here is my mother. Saying that, I stepped aside to let my mother forward, causing David to freeze in shock. Why are you here? Well, hello. I suppose this is our first meeting outside the office, isn't it? Why? What is the chairman here? Wait, parent, what does this mean? Oh, you knew who I am. I assumed I was quite unknown within the company, as we rarely meet. No way, not knowing our chairman's face. That's impossible. Well, I'm flattered. Yes, my mother is chairman of our company. Apparently, David knew of her but was unaware of our family relationship. David was completely intimidated in the presence of my mother. So, David, I've heard everything. My son seems to be under your care. However, your assertions are exactly as my son described. Well, that. Annual leaves are a legitimate right of employees. You have no business to reprimand for that. And what about this? Unpaid overtime. Overtime for promotion. Which era are you living in? Listen, work isn't about blindly putting in hours. It's most important to do it efficiently. Without proper balance, you can't perform well. As a professional, I assumed you understood that, but maybe I was wrong. My mother, with a fixed smile, cornered David. He was completely cowed by her. But I had no intention of stopping her. Frankly, I thought she should be even tougher on him. Relying on others wasn't my style, but my mother had always been frightening when angry, running a company for so long. Her lips smiled, but her eyes were anything but. In fact, just looking at them gave a chill, so icy and ruthless they were. Well, that's enough. I'm not here for work but for leisure. I don't have the time to spare on you. Chairman, do you have something more for us? Any other business? Yikes. No, nothing. Good. I'll inform you of your consequences later. Be prepared for that. Kevin, let's go. Yes. Seeing my mother so livid after a long time, I couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. Careful not to aggravate her further, I responded and walked past Aston David. Glancing at his face as we passed, I saw a man utterly crushed by despair. After that, my mother and I enjoyed our trip immensely and returned home very satisfied. The day after next, when I went back to work, David's seat was no longer in the sales department. It seemed that my mother had called HR from our trip. David's unreasonable treatment of his subordinates came to light. HR had already deemed him unfit for the managerial role, considering him just a stopgap until a more suitable person was hired. Of course, had he performed well, he could have kept his position, but his conduct had sealed his fate. It seemed that David had mistakenly believed he earned his position through his own merit, when in reality, it was more of a fluke. This misperception led to his tyrannical behavior, resulting in an immediate transfer. He was transferred to the logistics department, a place so hot it makes you sweat like a waterfall, where physical strength is essential. The nature of the work there meant it was mostly populated by young, physically strong men, making it a somewhat sweaty environment. David, to that logistics department. I doubt he'll be able to keep up. He's probably aiming for voluntary resignation. Well, considering what he's done, it's a fitting consequence. Anyway, with him gone, we can work more efficiently again, which is a relief. Yes, no more unnecessary overtime or working on holidays. It seems we're heading back to a peaceful work environment. Everyone gossiped, but no one truly seemed worried about David. He was probably feeling marginalized now, sweating profusely in the logistics department. I didn't feel a shred of sympathy for him. In the sales department, the position of the next department head was left vacant for a while, and the manager, Steve, temporarily took on the role. We made a mistake with an interim personnel decision, thinking it was just for a short while. I apologize for the great inconvenience caused to everyone. The HR department, seemingly reflecting on their actions, came all the way to the sales department to leave words of apology. It seems my mother, though retired as the active chairman, reconsidered the need to keep an eye on the company's internal affairs. The current president, who had been my mother's competent right hand for years, also received a word from her and sent an apology. In the sales department, we were just glad to have our peaceful work environment back and felt almost embarrassed to be apologized to by various parties. Soon after his transfer to logistics, David left the company. It's unclear whether the transfer was a move to encourage his resignation, but working under younger employees must have been unbearable for him. And physically, it must have been quite demanding. He was really put through the ringer, someone commented. It's ironic for someone who hated taking orders. He couldn't have lasted long. Such rumors faded within a week. Later, I was summoned by my mother to the reception room. Kevin, sorry for the sudden call. It's fine, but what's up? Something else happened. No, it's different. I was hoping you'd be ready to accept a promotion soon. A promotion? Yes, I'm very grateful you joined our company. I know you've continued to work in the field based on Michael's advice, and you have your own goals and pride in your current job. I think I understand all that. Then why suddenly? It's not sudden. I've been thinking about it for a long time. It's not just me. President and the HR department agree. Really? That was surprising to hear. Kevin, since you joined the company, we haven't had a proper discussion, so let me say this now. I hope, if possible, you can work towards becoming the next president of the company. That is, certainly, since I joined the company you founded, I've thought about eventually, but I still have so much to learn, and I still want to be out in the field. I understand, but our company's work isn't just about being in the field. Certainly, there are things you can't understand and experiences you can't gain unless you're on site. However, there are also things you can only understand and learn by being in a leadership position, directing others. I understood what my mom was saying. I felt the same way. When I first joined the company, I was fully intent on eventually taking over as president. However, after working in the textile industry for 10 years, I grew increasingly anxious about whether I could handle such a big responsibility. I told my mom, "Please let me think about it." I called Michael on the weekend. He had successfully undergone surgery and was now enjoying a peaceful retirement. I haven't been in touch for a while. It's been a long time. I discussed the recent events and my mom's proposal with Michael. Honestly, I'm more anxious than confident right now. I worry that standing at the top in the state of mind will only make everyone else uneasy. Then Michael quietly said, "Do you have time now? It's your day off, right?" "Yes." "Then bring me the highest quality fabric sample you're handling right now," he instructed me. I quickly grabbed what I believed to be the best fabric sample I was handling and went to Michael's house. After showing him the sample, Michael commented, "You've really come to understand, haven't you?" He smiled kindly. "It's proof that you've built up solid experience in the field. You should be fine." His words resonated deeply with me. I felt acknowledged for the first time and was moved. "Thank you, I really appreciate it." And that feeling gradually turned into confidence. Encouraged by Michael, I decided to accept my mother's wishes. I was anxious about what others would think of my promotion, being inexperienced in many areas, but when I was actually promoted to manager, everyone seemed happier than I was. "Kevin, congratulations. It's as if it's my own promotion. I'm so happy. Finally. I was wondering why you hadn't been given a position until now. Congratulations. Everyone, thank you. I may cause some inconvenience, being inexperienced and only knowing the field. Not at all. We all know how much you've contributed to the company. Don't worry, we'll support you in whatever way we can. Thank you, really, thank you. The sound of applause was heartwarming. With my promotion to manager, Steve was promoted to department head. As a sales department, we had a foundation to move forward unitedly once again. After my promotion, I became more proactive in training and guiding within the department. Even though juniors had asked for my guidance before, I was mostly out in the field, so I wasn't often in the office. Especially the new female employee, who had wanted to ask me many things, benefited from my new focus on sharing knowledge and sales expertise. Perhaps as a result, the company's performance improved. Jess, is there something you still don't understand? No, it's not that, Kevin, do you have a girlfriend? What? The new female employee asked such a personal question. Looks like spring has finally come for Kevin. Others teased me. I spent several years living through such days. I was promoted to department head, recognized for my achievements as a manager. At first, I was filled with anxiety about my new role, but now I am fully resolved to take over as president when the time comes. This is all thanks to my mother, who showed me the value of hard work from a young age, Michael, whom I respect, and everyone at the company who has supported me. Their encouragement has built my confidence and contributed to the company's growth. Kevin. President Wilson, good to see you. Likewise. How are you finding the department head role? Well, I'm still feeling quite inexperienced. Haha, you're really humble, quite different from your mother. I occasionally join him for drinks, savoring these moments. He has worked under my mother for a long time. I want to learn as much as I can from him now about his vision for the company and his approach to leadership. I don't want to rely on my mother's influence. I want to earn recognition for my own abilities. To do this, I'm willing to work hard, even if it means getting my hands dirty. Perhaps sensing my intentions, President Wilson shares various experiences with me, including stories about my mother and his own failures. I also make time to visit home and listen to my mother's advice. You look much more mature now. Maybe it's just a parent's pride, but you really seem dependable. Hearing her say that, I can't help but feel it's true. Until now, I've been focused solely on field work and my own responsibilities. That was what was required and expected of me. But as my responsibilities have grown, so has my perspective. It's a natural progression, and I need to adapt. Of course, there are things I need to oversee from a higher level. But sometimes, it's important to return to the field perspective, ensuring the well-being of the employees and the appropriateness of personnel management. It's precisely because I've always been in the field that I can think this way. My time in the field has broadened my horizons. Still, I remain inexperienced. Just appointed as a manager, I find the thought of aspiring to be president presumptuous. But for everyone who believes in me, who follows me, I want to quickly grow into a role I can be confident in. I aspire to take on that position as soon as possible, with confidence in my abilities. There's still much to learn from my mother, Michael, President Wilson, and everyone else. I'll keep my feet on the ground and strive to be a president that would not be an embarrassment. That's my resolve. My name is Bob Johnson. This is a story from nearly 30 years ago. It was a cold night in late November, about a month after I was sent to a factory in a rural town in Nebraska. Though it was just past 6 o'clock, it was already dark outside. Back then, I lived on the second floor of an apartment that the auto repair company I worked for had rented. After finishing work that day, I hurried home, holding the takeout I had bought for dinner. When I turned off the main street and into a narrow lane, my apartment was just ahead. There was a restaurant at the corner, but it was located deep inside a narrow pathway that extended from the main street. The land was shaped like a flagpole. It's called a flag lot. So, the restaurant building itself was diagonally across from my apartment, separated by that lane. The lane was dark with only a few street lights, but the light shining out of the restaurant's large windows was almost blinding. Sorry for the long preamble, but in essence, that evening, as I turned the corner from the main street and passed by a restaurant, I happened to glance over and saw a young woman in her 20s inside the restaurant, puckering her lips and sticking them out toward the window, as if she was beckoning for a kiss from me. I felt like I'd seen something I shouldn't have and hurriedly ascended the external staircase to my apartment. Originally, the reason I had been transferred to a factory in Nebraska was due to a light-hearted prank by a colleague with whom I had worked in a repair shop in New York. I was on the brink of turning 30. Around that time, the car repair shop where I'd worked for nearly 10 years went bankrupt, and I got re-employed as a mechanic at a car repair company with several branches in the Northeast. Of course, the workshop I joined had senior colleagues, but there were also mischievous junior colleagues. "Hey Bob, can you take care of this? Finish up what you're working on first." The task the junior colleague handed over to me was a simple regular inspection of a passenger car. However, the owner of this car, a customer, was quite a character. He was the heir to a transportation company that was a major client of our shop, and he would bring his car in for a regular checkup every 6 months. But if his car wasn't given top priority, he'd get in a foul mood. To make matters worse, he would secretly check to make sure his car wasn't being neglected. Unaware of this, I, following the junior colleague's instruction, first finished repairing another customer's car. Seeing his car's inspection being postponed, the heir, who had been watching from the shadows, lodged a complaint with the factory manager. "Did you guys properly explain it to Bob? We told him it's top priority." The junior colleague chuckled. The factory manager seemed to understand that I hadn't been properly informed. But the heir threatened to get his father involved and end all business with us unless I was fired. "Bob, given the situation, I hate to ask this, but could you go to our Nebraska branch until things cool down?" Not wanting to lose another job, I agreed to go to Nebraska. The factory manager said I'd be there until things cooled down, which meant for a year. In other words, it was a promise to bring me back to New York after a year. However, once I arrived at the rural Nebraska workshop, I quickly took a liking to the relaxed pace, quite different from New York. Throughout the workday, the local AM radio would play. Casually listening to the radio while working. From 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. on weekdays, there was a laid-back program called Hello Nebraska that didn't seem special at all. But I got hooked on it. Every Wednesday, a female reporter on her rounds and the main male announcer would engage in banter that tickled my funny bone. "Hey, Catherine, where are you reporting from today?" "Hi, it's reporter Catherine. Today, I'm at the SC visiting the Arnata Park." "Wait, what? SC, what's that?" "That means the southern part of the county." "Well, then say South County properly." I thought I did. "Geez, you didn't. So, where's this Arnata Park? Sounds nice, I guess." "Yes, I'm definitely at the Arnata Park." "Why do you stretch out the E? It's in a daw." The male radio host would become particularly sharp-tinged, almost bursting with sarcasm, only when he interacted with her. It wasn't that he was genuinely mad, he seemed to be holding back laughter. And Catherine, the budding reporter, would earnestly and seriously respond, which for some reason I found hilarious and became addicted to. Anyway, about the girl from the restaurant across from my apartment. It soon became clear that she wasn't trying to beckon for a kiss from a passing stranger like me. Because, ever since that day, out of curiosity, I'd occasionally lean out from my apartment window to observe her. From my observations, I realized that she seemed to be a restaurant employee, and during slow hours or while waiting for customers, she would make funny faces towards the window, pulling up the corners of her mouth, opening her mouth wide, or puckering her lips. My head was full of questions. Living a boring life in the countryside, my curiosity piqued, and on the next payday, I decided to visit that restaurant I had been avoiding because it seemed a bit pricey. The inside of the restaurant wasn't as formal as I'd expected. It had a modern design and a touch of luxury, but the atmosphere was casual. I ordered a hamburger dinner set. For me, quantity matters more than taste in a regular meal. I was satisfied as long as my stomach was full. Even with that, the hamburger here stood out as exceptionally delicious. And the portion size was pretty generous. But $30 is a bit steep, a treat for myself on payday. I wasn't the only one who thought so. Seems like most folks decide to splurge on payday. The restaurant had a steady stream of customers. Thankfully, she looked so busy that she probably didn't have time to make any funny faces. Speaking of which, I noticed something as soon as I entered the restaurant. There was a large window that extended from the ceiling to about waist height of a standing person, and the lace curtains hanging there were tied back in the middle, leaving it open. At night, with the darkness outside and the reflection of the restaurant's lights on the window, it created a two-way mirror effect. This meant that the girl making funny faces was looking at a reflection in this two-way mirror. Maybe she was practicing for some kind of year-end party performance. That's what I thought at the time. Hey, everyone, can y'all take a moment and listen up? Manager Smith, with his usual laid-back voice, called out to us who were working. So, this coming Wednesday, Manager Smith pointed to a speaker on the wall that was playing a radio broadcast and mentioned that a radio show would be visiting our factory for a segment. You mean, like Hello, Nebraska? Ding, ding, ding. Manager Smith mentioned that he would be interviewed, but some of us might be as well, so we should be prepared. Wednesday, which means the reporter would be Catherine, whom I'm a big fan of. And when I saw Catherine's face during the segment, I almost fainted. She was the same waitress making those funny faces. Suddenly, a piercing feedback noise echoed throughout the factory. Right after the Hello, Nebraska crew arrived, someone had left the factory radio on, causing feedback. Manager Smith rushed to turn off the radio and profusely apologized to reporter Catherine and the crew. Next up, sir, over here. She turned the microphone to me. Your name? Bob. Roderick. Huh? Have you been working here long? With a pounding heart, I answered her questions. I couldn't remember what she asked or how I responded at the time. That night, I went back to my apartment and replayed the radio segment I had recorded earlier in the day. Well, thank you all, especially Mr. Smurf. That's all from us here. It was not a big deal for me to be called Roderick instead of Bob. But Mr. Smith ended up being called Mr. Smurf. The recording even included some post-interview studio chatter, where a male host said, calling Mr. Smith a Smurf was a bit rude, don't you think? Since then, I'd occasionally peek into the restaurant from a side street or my apartment window. And I realized something. Oh, she makes those faces at the two-way mirror when there aren't many customers, meaning it's a quiet time at the restaurant. Next time, I thought I'd try to time my visit for one of these quiet moments. Maybe then, I'd get a chance to chat with her for a bit. Before all this, I mostly just frequented the local convenience store. However, on my days off, I started doing bulk shopping at supermarkets and cut down on my impulse spending at convenience stores to save money. There's this restaurant that's a bit pricey, but she works there, and I wanted to visit. And then, the day before my next payday, I had decided to have dinner at that restaurant. Learning from my past experience, I decided to go the day before payday, not on the payday. Just to be sure, I checked the windows of the restaurant from the outside, which had turned into a one-way mirror. And I could see her making a funny face. When I entered the restaurant, just as I thought, I was the first customer of the night. Noticing a customer, she swiftly turned her body from the window to face inside. She guided me to a table for 4. I'm alone. Is that okay? Yes. I don't think it will be that crowded tonight. I glanced over the menu, but I had already decided on the hamburger dinner set from the get-go. Returning the menu, I looked up at her, and she stared back at me intently. Excuse me, haven't we met somewhere before? Not at this restaurant. Yes, once at the auto repair shop you visited for a radio interview. Oh, you're that guy, she said, furrowing her brows, trying to recall. Was it Bob? Yes, Bob, right. Yes, it's Bob, not Roderick. She made a playful, gully face and stuck out her tongue. Realizing she had forgotten to take the order, she quickly headed towards the kitchen. New order, burger set, 1. After that, she whispered something to a dignified, older gentleman standing on the floor. The gentleman nodded in agreement, took a quick glance at me, and gave her another nod of approval. After she bowed to him, she returned to my table. I asked for permission to chat with you until your food is ready. Who's he? He's the owner. She then asked apologetically if she had mistakenly called me Roderick during the interview. I replied yes and jokingly mentioned that she called Mr. Smith Mr. Smurf. Hearing that, she laughed and shared how she got scolded in the studio for getting names wrong. Usually, I'm fine. I can say Bob correctly and even Manager Smith properly. But when I hold a microphone, I just mess up. She lamented, it's bad for a radio announcer. But I like listening to you, I said. She looked surprised, and I quickly tried to clarify. I mean, you have a unique style which makes the radio fun to listen to. Just then, a voice from the kitchen announced my hamburger was ready. She excused herself to get my meal. I sneakily glanced at the restaurant window. The one-way mirror was showing a clear reflection of me. When she brought the food, she said, "Sorry for the unnecessary chit-chat," and was about to leave my table when I stopped her. Just one more thing. She stopped and looked at me. Catherine, do you often make funny faces at that window? She looked genuinely shocked and covered her face with her hands. Could you see me? Yes, when it gets dark outside, that window becomes like a one-way mirror. From inside, it's like a regular mirror, but from outside, you can see everything inside the restaurant. She let out a big sigh, looking a little embarrassed. Then, as a demonstration, she made a funny face at me. I chuckled, saying, "Oh yeah, exactly that, exactly." It's like a pronunciation exercise. I wanted to improve my speech clarity. I do it in front of the window, looking at my reflection, whenever I have free time. She bowed her head towards me, saying she won't do it anymore. She added, "Please have it while it's still warm," as she began to move away from my table. Without thinking, I called out to her. "It's perfectly fine. Having unique speech, it's like your own charm. I'm a fan, really, especially of your." She turned around, giving me a long, searching look. That night, I got carried away and talked endlessly with her, but afterwards, I felt embarrassed and decided not to visit that restaurant again. About a year after I arrived in Nebraska, shortly before I was set to return to New York, I decided to see her one last time at that restaurant. The place was almost empty that night. The gentlemanly owner seated me. Immediately after sitting, I looked around the restaurant, but she was nowhere to be seen. "It's been a while since your last visit. Thank you for coming back." I was surprised that he remembered me. For a moment, I wondered if he was mistaking me for someone else. I felt terrible thinking our waitress might have bothered you with her long stories," he added. I quickly waved my hands in front of my face, denying it. Worried that he might have fired her because of a misunderstanding, I asked, "Is the waitress from that time off today?" He shook his head and said, "You know she works as a radio reporter, right?" I said yes, and mentioning that I still listen to her segment every Wednesday. Then, the owner told me about her. She couldn't make ends meet with just her weekly radio job, so she had been working part-time at this restaurant. However, about 3 months ago, she was scouted by a radio station in New York who found her intriguing. Now, she has quit her part-time job at this restaurant and moved to New York. In a radio station in New York, she appears in a late-night show as a comedian's assistant. She still appears in the program Good Morning Nebraska out of respect, as it was the show that nurtured her. I told her I'd be transferring to New York soon myself. So, this would be my last dinner at this place. Well, sorry for the long chat. Would you like the hamburger dinner set? The owner remembered my favorite dish. Even in Nebraska, you could listen to radio shows in New York. I quickly tuned into the late-night show where she was an assistant. "Catherine, you really need to work on your pronunciation." She was playfully teased on the show as well. "It's fine, really. There are a fan who likes me just the way I am." Who in the world would that be? A man named Roderick. He's not silly. He's a wonderful person. Oh, what's this? A love confession on air. Half a month later, I returned to New York. Not much had changed at my workplace, the repair factory, from a year ago. The only difference was that the young heir of the transportation company, who was the reason I was sent to Nebraska, had been reprimanded by his father and had calmed down. On the night before my first day off after returning to the New York factory, I spent some cash to buy a big bouquet and waited for her outside the radio station in Central Park after her late-night show. "Isn't that Bob? Why are you here?" She saw me and ran towards me, and I embraced her tightly. It was one of the few romances I had ever experienced. A story from a long time ago, over 30 years ago. In life, you never know what's going to happen. Sure, some things might seem unfair, but not all of them are bad. I once thought I'd never see a woman again after our first meeting, but then we ran into each other in the most unexpected place. Was it a miracle or fate? Never in a million years did I think our futures would turn out this way. My name is Jake, 30 years old. I work in the product planning department at the headquarters of a food company. I thought it'd be fun if something I came up with could benefit someone or make them excited. That's why I wanted to get into planning, and I found this job. They were hiring fresh out of college, looking for some young blood. Most of my work involves analyzing and collecting data, mostly under the guidance of my seniors. But I always hoped that one day it'd be my turn. Try drafting a proposal. I still remember the thrill when I was given that chance and the joy I felt when even a small project was approved. At 28, I took a big risk and made a proposal for a new project. It got approved and was a huge success. I even won the President's Award. Getting here wasn't easy, but I felt things had been going smoothly. Before I knew it, I hit 30. My parents were getting worried, always asking, "All you do is work. What about settling down?" Both of my parents got married when they were 22. My brother tied the knot at 24. So, they were probably concerned seeing me still single at 30. I know someone who's looking for a match. My mom suggested an arranged date. The idea didn't excite me, but my mom said, "It's not as formal as you think. Why not give it a shot?" Apparently, she had already shown that person my picture. I was annoyed she did that without asking, but she said the response was positive. The woman's name is Catherine. She's 28 and works as a nurse. I'll send you her picture. Take a look. My mom, sounding quite excited, hung up the phone without waiting for my response. Soon after, a picture and a message were sent to my cell phone. She's the one in the middle. It looked like a fun pic with her colleagues. She had her hair neatly tied up, and her smile was radiant. My phone buzzed again, a message from my mom. Jake, she's totally your type, right? My brother had seen the photo too and thought Catherine was right up my alley. That's my brother. He hit the nail on the head, and I couldn't help but laugh out loud reading my mom's message. To be honest, I've been so consumed with work since starting my job that I haven't been dating. Now, I'm not even sure how to go about finding someone. I do think about getting married someday. I felt like maybe it wouldn't hurt to just meet up once. It seems the lady in question, Catherine, isn't keen on a formal arranged date either. The idea was for the two of us to meet up and maybe grab dinner. We decided to have a date, but just the two of us without any matchmakers. We exchanged contact information and set a date. It turned out both of us were free the following Saturday. I was looking forward to the day we'd meet. However, on the day before the date, an unexpected situation arose. You've got a transfer order. Called into the manager's office, I took the order and my eyes widened. Is this? I was at a loss for words. The sudden transfer was shocking enough, but to top it off, the new location was in what could be described as a rural branch office in another state. I have heard that the department has a small number of employees and is just a task-oriented department. Within the company, it had a certain reputation as where the sidelined employees ended up. Seeing my shock, the manager said, "It's perfect for you. You can speak your mind and work as you like." Apparently, he had recommended me for this transfer. While HR and the higher-ups were skeptical, the manager was convinced that I'd bring fresh energy and boost business, or so he claimed. Whether it was true or not, I heard the CEO had high hopes for my transfer too. "You're lucky," the manager said with a smirk. Why did this happen? That's when it hit me after hearing the words, "You can speak your mind and work however you want." Ever since I won an award within the company, the manager's attitude towards me changed drastically. "Hey, Jake, where's that report I asked for?" Looking back, that was the beginning. "Which one are you referring to?" "You know, the one I asked for a week ago," he retorted, his brows furrowing with frustration. But I had no recollection of him asking, and it was rare for him to make direct requests. Without any specifics, he publicly reprimanded me. "Don't get ahead of yourself, all right? I don't know why the director lied about asking me to do it, but he just lectured me and left." There were no urgent follow-up instructions either. I figured he must have been mistaken. However, from then on, he became more confrontational, often making snide remarks. That's when it hit me. A while back, there was a project that the manager pushed through based on his whims. Most of its content was his brainchild. However, it resembled a proposal that had been rejected in the past. Other companies had tried something similar and failed, and it wasn't in line with current market needs. While many disagreed, no one dared to oppose the manager. I, however, offered him some advice. It seems he didn't take kindly to it. That's probably why he targeted me. I regretted speaking up, but continued to work diligently while trying to avoid upsetting him. Seems it didn't work. And as a result, I got what felt like a demotion. "You're moving in 2 weeks. Make sure you hand everything over properly." With that, the manager walked away with a spring in his step. Now, with this transfer looming, the arranged date was the last thing on my mind. The new location was out of state and seemed like a dead end for my career. I thought I should call off the date before things got serious. However, I had already made a reservation at the restaurant. Canceling last minute didn't feel right, and telling Catherine over the phone seemed too rude. I decided to meet her in person and apologize. The next day, I met Catherine in front of the restaurant. Seeing her warm smile made my heart heavy. We entered the private room I had reserved for the occasion. Immediately after sitting down, I said, "Hey." I informed Catherine that I received a transfer order yesterday, that the new destination is far away, out of state, and I was assigned to a lesser-known department. It's a role with no potential for growth, and I had no idea what the future would hold. I couldn't possibly ask her to be okay with this. I also apologized for the inconvenience of meeting under these circumstances today. You could have just called, but you took the trouble to tell me in person. I appreciate it, but since we're here, how about having lunch together? I was prepared for her to be upset, but instead, Catherine gave me a warm smile. We enjoyed a delicious meal, and she shared stories about her work, how she had been too busy to meet anyone, and how a mutual acquaintance had introduced her to me. Turns out, our passion for our jobs was something we both had in common. The conversation flowed naturally, and time flew by. It was bittersweet when it came time to leave the restaurant. As I was leaving, I thanked her for the wonderful time and apologized once again for declining the previous arrangement. I then called my mom to update her. When I told her about my decision based on the transfer, she sounded disappointed but understood. I had some issues with the transfer, including issues with my boss. I considered quitting, thinking it might be better than transferring to the remote branch. But I decided to give it a shot, and if things didn't pan out, I could always leave. I decided to do my best at the new location. And then a year went by. The rural branch, rumored to be monotonous. Indeed, it was less exciting than when I was in the product planning department at the main office. Due to cost cutting, there were fewer staff, and we had to do tasks that would typically be handled by other teams at the main office. The workload was intense, and it felt like all of us were working like mules. Working overtime nonstop, I've been guzzling energy drinks just to keep going. It's been really tough on my body. And then, on a scorching summer day, as I was heading to the bus terminal, I suddenly felt unwell. I tried to sit on a bench but felt dizzy. I collapsed. I was suffering from mild heat stroke at this time. An elderly man nearby shouted, "Are you okay?" But all I could do was nod weakly. Then, I heard a familiar female voice ask, "Are you all right?" Unable to open my eyes, I just groaned. "Can you stand up? Sorry, let's get you to that bench over there." I felt hands supporting me, taking me to a shaded area. I don't know how many people helped me. They bought me water, fanned me, and took care of me. The woman who had spoken to me checked my pulse and felt my forehead to check my temperature. After some hydration and cooling down, I began to feel better. Once I felt a bit clearer, I thanked everyone, and they left. The helpful woman stayed till the end. "I'm glad you're looking better. Please go home and rest." I thanked her once more. "Thank you so much for your help." I looked up and met her eyes and exclaimed, "Wait." She smiled. "I thought so. It's you, Jake, right?" It was Catherine. She had not recognized me initially, but noticed the resemblance once I began to recover. I hadn't been able to see her face clearly, and only realized now. "But why are you here, Catherine?" She mentioned she was on a solo trip, taking a break. "It's surprising you recognized me from just one meeting." We laughed about it. Seeing that I was feeling better, Catherine looked relieved. I wanted to thank her properly, but decided to rest for the day. She mentioned she'd be in a nearby hotel the next day. We agreed to meet up the next Saturday. And the next day, I called my office right after and took a proper day off, and my body recovered. I let Catherine know that I was feeling better. While eating at a recommended upscale restaurant, I asked Catherine why she was traveling alone. Catherine wanted to be healed by nature while taking in the sights of various regions. But I could sense a hint of sadness in her expression. I get pretty worn out, so I took some time off on a whim. Catherine said that, though her smile looked forced. How about you, Jake? She shifted the topic to me, and I shared my recent happenings. I talked about my less satisfying job compared to before, and vented a bit. I realized how much I love the projects I used to work on. I'm not quite content with my current environment. When I first transferred here, I was determined to return to the main office and make a mark, but lately, I've been thinking that maybe trying something different might not be a bad idea. Hearing that, Catherine mused, maybe I should come over here. The air is fresh, and it's comforting. She looked distant. Her expression was still somewhat downcast. What happened? I asked out of concern. It turned out that her solo journey wasn't just for vacation. Catherine is a nurse at a major hospital. She works in a hospital ward and has a large number of patients that one person handles. While she's proud of her nursing career, she feels she's been too emotionally involved with each patient, which has drained her spirit. She started to wonder if nursing might not be the right career for her. She thought she had overcome such feelings a long time ago, but now they're resurfacing. She's contemplating quitting her nursing job. Not all of them are discharged from the hospital in good health. It might be even tougher than I imagine. Though it's not my place to say, I offered, maybe you need a break. Taking some time off can be necessary. It felt like I was talking more to myself than to Catherine. Maybe I should quit too, I exclaimed with a stretch and a grin. For some reason, I blurted out something completely unexpected. If you're up for it, why don't we travel together? What was I thinking? But it wasn't a lie. What was it? I had this vague feeling that things might be better if Catherine and I were together. Catherine looked surprised but then bashfully nodded, if you're okay with me. Daddy. Oh, Michael, what's up today? I crouched down to lift my energetically running son. The clinic was only half day today, so I picked up Michael from daycare. Today is a community event day at the coastal town center. There are stalls selling fresh seafood, grilled fresh fish, and booths with toys and food that children love. I'm here today as an employee of the company organizing this event. Since my reunion with Catherine, I'd casually mentioned traveling together. It became a reality. We both thought it was just a spur of the moment. I quit my job, and Catherine quit nursing. Since both of us had been working so much, we hadn't spent much. We had plenty saved up for our journey. We traveled around the US on a whim. While I knew I wanted to start something new and loved planning, I wasn't clear about what else I was interested in, or whether I wanted to work in the food industry again. Catherine thought that taking a break might give her a new perspective. The reason she agreed to my wild idea was she hoped the trip would offer some clarity. One of the places we visited is the coastal town we now call home. The scent of the sea was ever present, and every meal we had was delicious. Moreover, throughout our stay, the warmth of the townsfolk was truly comforting. Catherine felt the same way. After our journey, we both considered settling down here. To settle down, we needed to find a job. I wanted to work in planning, so I checked a job listing website and saw that the event company I was working for was hiring. Based on my past work, whether it was in food or miscellaneous goods, I had been thinking narrowly, but I immediately thought, this is it, for someone else. To bring excitement. My core reasons for wanting to work in planning hadn't changed. The event company's website made my heart race even more. That's how I ended up joining the event company. And Catherine, she found work at a clinic. Catherine, who took the time to reflect on herself during our travels. She remembered when she aspired to be a nurse. If she could support someone, even just a little. She realized her pride in nursing and her feelings hadn't changed. During our travels, there were several instances where Catherine assisted sick people. Perhaps it's a nurse's intuition. Not that they were collapsed or huddled, but by observing their movements and complexion, Catherine would approach and ask, "Are you okay?" With swift actions, she'd calm them down, or make them feel a bit better, just like she did for me. I often think nursing is her true calling. I believe Catherine realized that too. Without hesitation, Catherine searched for a nursing job. And she found her current clinic. The clinic is closely connected to the local community. She said she hoped to support the folks in our beloved town. Our trip with Catherine, though spontaneous, never felt out of place. Being with her felt natural, or rather, there was an overwhelming sense of excitement. Our bond quickly grew closer. After living in this town for a while, with the thought, if it's with Catherine in mind, I made a heartfelt confession, almost like a proposal, asking, "Would you stay with me from now on?" To my joy, Catherine felt the same way. We dated for about a year, and then we got married. And then our son, Michael, was born. By the way, my family wasn't surprised when Catherine and I got married. They had anticipated this from the time we started our trip. Especially my mom and older brother, they still claim they played Cupid. Catherine's family is also supportive, happy to see her smiling, even though we're living far away. Had I not met Catherine, I might not have taken such a bold step. Looking back, that unexpected job transfer might have been a turning point leading to this happy future. Far from being a demotion, I think of it as a promotion. But the courage I had at that time is still a mystery to me. What was that about? It was strange, right? Catherine and I often reminisce and laugh about it. Maybe it was a mix of a miracle and destiny. While cherishing these happy moments, I hope we can keep smiling in this town we love so much.